All right, hey guys, it's Dr. Keen. We're moving on to a new chapter now. Finished endocrine system, and we are going to start talking about blood, um, which is goes right along with the endocrine system because, like we talked about in the last chapter, hormones are used as a communication system, and they use the blood to transfer those hormones through the body so that you can create that communication in your body. And so this goes right along with that. The other thing this goes right along with is the immune system, and that is a hot topic right now. So I feel like this is a good way for us to talk more about what's been going on and how our immune system functions and how it's an extremely intelligent system that we can trust. And you'll be able to see that as we go through this. So uh, first thing we're going to talk about in this part one, we're going to talk about the components of blood and what blood is made out of. So if you look at this video right here, I'm not going to play it for you. You go ahead and play that for yourself on the notes that I've made available to you on Canvas, so you can kind of get a little overview of the blood there. And this is just a little comic to give you a little information about what taking blood is like. If you're able to give blood, it's always a good idea. Phlebotomists are the people that do that, so the people that actually take your blood, they're called phlebotomists. Remember from medical terminology or other terminology that you guys have had, phlebo means vein, otomy means to cut into, so basically it means to cut into your vein, but they're just, inserting a needle. But this is very important for our healthcare system to have blood transfusions and blood available to people that need it, especially right now. So if you're able to, most places require you to be either 16 or 17, depends on the place, and you have to be about 110 pounds to give blood, but it's always a good idea. All right, so what is blood and what's the point? We've already talked about how it's used as a communication system for our endocrine system, but it has way more function than that. It carries all kinds of proteins and nutrients and water through your body. It removes things from your body too. This is a waste removal system, which a lot of your systems are actually waste removal systems, like your digestive system and your urinary system and even your respiratory system, cardiovascular system are all waste removal systems. And blood is how they do that. Like carbon dioxide is a waste. It's a toxin to our body, so we have to get rid of it. And you guys know from basic biology, when you breathe out carbon dioxide, and that's actually transported through your blood. So extremely important. Transports substances like hormones, nutrients, all kinds of things that keep your body functioning properly. And as we've talked about in the past, that normal state of equilibrium with everything working together in unison is called homeostasis, and that's really what our body is trying to achieve all the time through all of its functions, and the blood is how the body does that. So if you take the parts of blood, there is multiple parts to it. It's both a solid and a liquid. And the thing about blood is it's actually a tissue. We talked about that when we talked about tissues. Remember, we talked about all the different types of tissues, and blood was one of them, because what is a tissue? It's a bunch of cells put together, and that is what blood is. It's a bunch of cells put together, and those cells are called formed elements, which we're going to look at in a minute, and the fluid part is called plasma. So this is what you get if you break down the components of blood. So here's blood all together right here, and if you put it in a system called a centrifuge, which you may have seen before, it's basically a giant barrel which you put these test tubes into, and it spins really fast, and that spinning process is what actually separates the different elements of the blood. And that's how they, once they take blood for blood transfusions, and when you give blood at different locations, they put it in this centrifuge and it separates out like this. So you end up with plasma, white blood cells and platelets, and red blood cells. So you can see how plasma actually makes up the majority of that, of the components of blood. Top layer is that plasma, the thin coat in the middle is called a buffy coat, and that's where you get the white blood cells and platelets. Platelets are what makes your blood clot. And then down here is the red blood cells, which is the majority of the cells in your blood. So here's our percentages. Erythrocytes, which you should know means red blood cells. Remember, erythro means red. So this is 45% of your blood. This percentage is known as what's called hematocrit. You may have heard that word before. Hematocrit is the percentage of red blood cells in your blood. So that's what it should be, around 45%. And then white blood cells and platelets is less than 1%. Less than 1%. And then plasma is 55%. So majority of it is plasma. The texture, it's sticky, opaque fluid. If you've ever, and I'm sure all of you have had a cut at one time or another in your life, as that blood starts to dry in that cut, you start to kind of feel how it kind of starts to stick to your body, and it gets a little thicker and sticky, and eventually creates a scab. That's kind of the texture of the blood. And taste, I mean, why would we care about the taste? But there is a metallic and salty taste to it because you have electrolytes in there, and you have iron in the hemoglobin that's in your red blood cells. So that's why that is like that. And then the color, it can vary. It depends on what kind of blood you have there. So we're going to look at that later when we talk more about the different types of blood. pH, you may remember that from chemistry. Those of you who've had chemistry, pH is the acidity of a fluid, and our body actually sits at a basic level. Remember, 7 is neutral for pH. Anything below 7 is considered acidic. Anything above 7 is considered alkaline or basic. And our body is actually naturally at an alkaline level, around 7.3, and that's where it's most efficient. If you get down closer to 7 or below 7, that actually allows your body to enter into a disease state a lot easier. Acidity is not good in your body. You want alkaline state. That's why, kind of, if you've ever noticed in grocery stores and stuff, alkaline waters are kind of popular right now because people are trying to keep that alkaline level in their body to prevent acidity. And you can get acidity from the things you eat and drink in your diet, also in your lifestyle too. So temperature is about 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and this is actual temperature. When you take the temperature in your mouth, that's actually 1 degree lower than what your actual body temperature is. So your actual body temperature should be about 99.6 to 100.6 or so. And then body weight and volume counts for about 8% of your body weight, and you get about 5 to 6 liters of blood in your body. That's a lot of blood, 5 to 6 liters of blood at any point. This here is what's considered oxygenated blood, and this is deoxygenated on the right. So oxygenated blood, as you can see, is much more bright red, and as it loses that oxygen and becomes more carbon dioxide rich, then it starts to get more of a darker color. But as you can see, blood is never blue like you see in anatomy books. It's not blue. This is a deoxygenated blood, which is depicted by the blue blood in animated pictures in anatomy books and stuff. But as you can see, it's not blue, right? It's just a really dark red, almost black. So don't be fooled to think that your blood is blue. It's never blue. It's always red. Plasma, like I said, plasma is the majority of your blood, about 55%, and it's about 90% water. So mostly water, but you do have a lot of other elements in there, like nutrients, electrolytes, hormones, proteins, wastes, a lot of things that show up in there. And you can actually donate plasma also. And so that's what this is. This is a extracted plasma for a donation. And it transports substances all through your body. Plasma proteins, there are multiple plasma proteins, and they have a lot of different functions. Albumin is one of them, contributes to osmotic pressure of your blood, so it keeps the water in your bloodstream and allows you to flow water through your body, which water is extremely important. Your body is 75% water, so make sure you're drinking a lot of water. Remember, I've told you guys before about half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. Antibodies flow through your plasma. Plasma proteins are not taken up by cells to be used as food fuels or metabolic nutrients. They're used more for transportation and clotting and that kind of thing in the blood. So composition of the plasma, like I said, there's lots of proteins in there. There's electrolytes. There's white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets, all the different parts of the body. So the formed elements, first part is the red blood cells or erythrocytes. And what these do is they carry oxygen through your body, and they also carry hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is what contains iron in your blood, and that transports that through your body. So that's the main important thing of red blood cells, is getting oxygen and iron through your body. All right, when you look at the shape of red blood cells, they kind of look like donuts with no holes, pretty much, and that's so they can carry that oxygen and the hemoglobin, so they can transfer that through the body. There's a ton of red blood cells in your blood, like you saw in that picture earlier. It's the majority of the formed elements in your blood. There's about 1,000 to 1 versus white blood cells, so way more than the white blood cells. And this increases the viscosity, so that basically makes it thicker, makes your blood thicker, is the red blood cells. That's what that does. And like I said earlier, the hemoglobin, each hemoglobin molecule can bind to 4 molecules of oxygen, so you have that hemoglobin is important for carrying the oxygen and the iron, and each hemoglobin carries 4 oxygens, and a single red blood cell contains about 250 million hemoglobin molecules. So if you multiply that by the 4 molecules of oxygen, then that's about 1 billion molecules of oxygen that your red blood cell can carry. So that's a lot of oxygen. So those are very important to keep your strength and keep your homeostasis going. So anemia is a decrease of oxygen carrying ability of the blood, and that occurs sometimes from it can be a hereditary issue, and it can be issues with the formation of the red blood cells, and one of them is called sickle cell anemia. It's more common in African American population, but it can happen to anybody, but it is statistically much more predominant in the African American population. And this is what the red blood cell starts looking like, and you can see why there can be anemia, because there's no carrying capacity basically of that red blood cell. So they have some normal, but they have others that look like that. So very difficult to carry oxygen and hemoglobin with that kind of shape. And like I said before, African American population is much more common, and individuals with this, they have a better chance of surviving, where malaria is prevalent, because the same gene that causes sickle cell anemia also makes red blood cells infected by a malaria-causing parasite stick to the capillary walls and then lose potassium. So malaria-causing parasite actually is prevented from multiplying, sickle cell gene has a better chance of surviving in malaria areas. So that's why African American population is more prevalent with this kind of anemia. So polycythemia, that means that you have an excess of abnormal increase in the number of erythrocytes, and so that can actually increase the viscosity of your blood, which can affect the flow of it. And that is all for part 1.